it means everything to the players, to the coaches, to the fans, to the countries. It means everything. Probably the most emotional and the greatest tournament to exist, which is why it's a really, really bad idea to upload your predictions to YouTube where anybody can comment names at you with no repercussions whatsoever. I have been pretty tame in the last couple of videos where I haven't really gone against the grain too much in terms of my predictions. I didn't have Qatar upsetting Netherlands and going to the finals of the World Cup. Could happen, probably not. This episode is going to be different. I cannot really defend myself about Group F. With evidence, logic, form, nothing. Nothing in Group F about my prediction makes sense. Telling everybody that Germany was getting grouped in 2018 also didn't really get the greatest response. But I got to go back later and say, I was right. I was right. It's that same gut feeling, because I'm going to come back later and I'm going to say, I told you so, or I'll just delete this video and you guys will have no evidence of it whatsoever. But before we get into that, I want to ask you guys, who do you think is going to be the surprise player of the tournament? Maybe a player that not too many people have heard of that you think is going to take the main stage. In 2014, if you guys remember, James Rodriguez really took the world by storm with Colombia and created an entire great career, maybe not as long-lived as some people had hoped, but a great career at some of the top clubs, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, for his performance in the World Cup, and nobody really knew who he was before that World Cup. Who's going to be that player for you? Comment that down below. For me, it's going to be Tejon Buchanan from Canada. This guy has been a bit overshadowed. He's been tearing it up in the MLS for a couple of years before last year he transferred to Club Brugge in Belgium, and he's been very consistent for Canada. He's been really overshadowed because the spotlight at Canada goes to Alphonso Davies and maybe Jonathan David and Kyle Larin a little bit as their best attackers, but Tejon Buchanan from the shadows has been putting in work, and every single time I watch him play, it really just shows that he opens up so much space for his teammates, and even if he doesn't get on the score sheet every game, he does it enough to where I think he'll be recognized, and I just feel like he is such an underrated player. This could be the World Cup that he does great. Group E is a fun group because you've got two of the three last World Cup winners in the same group, and neither of them won it in 2018, which means that Spain and Germany can avoid the World Cup curse altogether, where the previous winner ends up getting grouped the next World Cup. That shouldn't happen, but I have seen a lot of people with some big surprises in their predictions for this group, like Germany and Japan getting out of this group and Spain getting grouped. I have seen that partnership somewhere before, but I just don't see Spain getting knocked out here. In fact, I think Spain is the best team in this group, and I think they will finish first. That second match against Germany will be some great football, but I think Spain and Germany are back on the right track despite some ups and downs post winning the World Cup. Obviously, Germany getting grouped in 2018. I don't see it happening again, and if it does, that is really devastating for Germany. But let's be honest, you guys have 4 World Cup titles. I think you'll survive. Nonetheless, this group has Japan and Costa Rica, both teams that I think are pretty solid. Costa Rica won the playoff to get into the World Cup. Japan finished second in their AFC group, which means that they automatically qualified. And I love to root for Japan. I love the country. I think that Japan is awesome, and I really hope that they can perform well at this World Cup, but this is what I would say is the group of death. It's a tough group, and although it's not the highest overall ranking by FIFA, I think it is fair to say that this is the group of death, because when you look at Spain and Germany, if you're Japan and Costa Rica, you are huge underdogs. If you really look at any other group, there's not a top 2 this just complete as Spain and Germany. You could argue Denmark, France, but Spain, Germany, 2 of the 3 last World Cup winners, that's tough to beat, and that's tough to get out of that group. So I'd say that this is the group of death for Japan and Costa Rica. Group F is where things get a little bit wacky, all right? And I warned you. But before you start calling me slurs that I've never even heard of down in the comments below, I want to remind you that nobody had Paraguay winning their group in 2010. Made no sense, right? Nobody had Costa Rica knocking off both England and Italy to top that group in 2014. Made no sense. Some things just happen in the World Cup that shouldn't happen, but they do. And I have just a gut feeling, all right? I can't really explain it, about Group F that it's going to be absolute chaos from start to finish, all right? And there's an obvious front runner to this group, and that's Belgium, okay? So if you've got somebody like Canada topping this group, then that is absolutely absurd. All right, yeah, I have Canada topping this group. All right, you can start unloading on me in the comments below. Yes, Canada hasn't been to a World Cup in a while. In fact, they didn't even qualify for the hexagonal since 1998. That's the tournament, the final group that they play against each other to go to the World Cup, which USA got knocked out by Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, Canada didn't even qualify to play in that group. That's how big the strides that Canada has made over the past couple of years. All right, they went from not even qualifying for the hexagonal to winning the octagonal, qualifying for the World Cup first out of CONCACAF in this last year, okay? And on top of that, I think they have one of the most underrated attacks in the world, right? Canada, I already mentioned Tejon Buchanan, but I also rate Jonathan David, has been tearing it up for Lille in the French league. Kyle Laurin has been putting up numbers for Canada nonstop, and then obviously Alphonso Davies. And I cannot stop making comparisons to this team and the 2014 Colombian team that came out of nowhere and surprised everybody. I think that's Canada this year, and I have them topping this group with Belgium in second. But Morocco is not going to go out quietly, all right? Morocco will start putting up results against both Belgium and Croatia, all right? Those are going to be close games. You might say, well, Morocco just lost 3-0 to USA. And although I'd love to boast about that win, Morocco had to come to the USA to play us on a Wednesday night in a friendly match, and they didn't even have all of their starters. All right, Hakim Ziyech wasn't even there. That should be taken with a grain of salt. Morocco, I think, is one of the most underrated African nations, and they could do some damage against any team in this group. Croatia, the World Cup finalists back in 2018, where they played against France in the final. I have them getting grouped, okay? And yes, that might be really against the grain. And to be honest, I can't really back it with any evidence because Croatia has not been bad in the Nations League. They haven't been bad in qualifiers, all right? They've been doing their job. I just think that this group could be chaos. That is my final answer. Lock it, move on. Group G has my eventual winners to the World Cup, Brazil. So obviously, I have them getting out of this group. So it's really a fight for second. Who is going to be that second team that comes out of this group? And for me, I'm going with Serbia. Serbia haven't been consistent, but they have been talented at the right times. They even topped Portugal, controversially, in the qualifiers, and they automatically qualified while Portugal had to go through the series of playoff games. Serbia is a good team, all right? And they can compete with anybody. The only problem is, one week they'll put up a great result against Portugal, and then they'll lose to Denmark 3-0 the next month, right? So it really comes down to how consistent can Serbia be. Switzerland are higher ranked, but I do see Serbia topping out Switzerland and both Cameroon. And what's interesting about Group G is that this is a very similar group to what we saw in the 2018 World Cup, where it was Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Costa Rica. 3 of the 4 same teams. They're very familiar with each other. And in the last World Cup, it was Brazil and Switzerland to get out of this group. It'll be interesting to see if they do it again. For me, it's going to go Brazil, Serbia. Group H is another fun and possibly chaotic group, but it's also got one of the most anticipated games in this World Cup. No, it's not Portugal versus Uruguay. It's Ghana versus Uruguay. This game we've been waiting on this for 12 years, okay? Ever since Luis Suarez swatted that ball out of the goal, okay? We've been waiting for Ghana to get their revenge. Are they going to do it? No, I don't believe they are. They barely got out of the African qualifiers this year. In fact, if there wasn't the away goal rule, they wouldn't have. Actually, Nigeria and Ghana tied in total goals on aggregate. And in fact, it just came down to the away goals, and that's how they made it into the World Cup. So without that luck, I don't know if they'd even be here right now. And they are the lowest ranked team going into this tournament. Now, take that with a grain of salt. So was Russia in 2018, and they made it to the round of 8. So you can't count any team out, but I just do not see Ghana competing with some of the better UEFA and CONMEBOL teams if they can barely get out of the African qualifiers. South Korea, on the other hand, they could be the dark horses of this group, with Heung-min Son leading them. Obviously, they didn't get out of their group in 2018, but they did beat Germany, which was a big surprise to everybody. And if they can beat Germany, they could beat Portugal, they could beat Uruguay. Who knows if South Korea could end up pulling that off. Now, we've got a lot of the world rooting for Portugal. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo could be playing in his last World Cup, but there's also a chance he's actually Iron Man and will play until he's 72. We're not 100% sure about that yet. Portugal and Uruguay, I have getting out of this group. Uruguay tops the group. Portugal goes second, but I think they're both comfortably getting out of this group. I think South Korea could give them a game, but I don't see South Korea having the consistency that Uruguay and Portugal have shown. So that's my prediction for Group H. That's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for all of the love you've been showing me here on YouTube and on TikTok and on Twitter. You guys have been absolutely amazing. I love the World Cup so much, and I'm glad I can share the experience with you guys. So make sure that you're following, subscribing here, turning on notifications so you don't miss any World Cup 2022 content. And don't forget to comment down below which player you think is going to surprise us all at the 2022 World Cup. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.